Produced in high definition by Fox 50. Viewer discretion is advised. Tonight, it was her first year of marriage, but Linda Meeker fooled around and got murdered. NC Wanted in high definition starts now.
Good evening. Welcome to NC Wanted. I'm Gerald Owens. It was 1984, the year Linda Runyon Meeker was a 19-year-old newlywed living in the Sampson County town of Roseboro. It was also the year she was murdered. The investigation that followed was marked by conflicting statements, false leads, and dead ends. The case has kept investigators up at night and left a devastated family in fear for their own safety.
Sometimes you can take a case with not one clue of evidence. And it may be the easiest case you've ever solved in your life. Then again, you can get a case and you can have all the evidence in the world. And you couldn't solve it with 1,000 people. That's just life. That's just the way it goes. And that's what happened in this case.
Linda lived in a very small town, in Roseboro. Almost a crossroads with one traffic light. And at that time, I think there was one grocery store. She lived off the main highway in a residential neighborhood. I guess you could be classified as a quiet neighborhood in a small rural town. She worked in a local company there, doing clerical work.
We received a call from the Roseboro Police Department. They wanted us to come over to Roseboro to the Meeker residence that there'd been a murder. Went in the house and found a young female nude in the bathroom floor and with what appeared to be a stab wound to the chest.
Linda Runyon is a farmer's daughter, soon to be the first in her family to graduate from high school. By her senior year, she plans on college, but meets Howard Meeker, who most people call Junior. She marries him, and within a month of graduating, Linda goes to work as a secretary at DuBose Steel. Howard works for a local construction company installing light poles. The couple wants 4 children and a big house, but for the time being, they rent a bungalow on Clinton Street.
It was sometime late that evening, Junior's sister called to the house and wanted to know if Linda was all right, that she didn't show up for work. Daddy told Barbara and Stevie to go and check on her and see she was all right.
Me and him had went in the back door, and Stevie was playing with a kitten. That's when we went around the corner through the kitchen and partially of the living room. And when we went in the hallway and turned towards the bathroom, that's when we seen Linda on the floor. She had blood on her, so we turned out. And Stevie had the kitten. I don't know what he done with the kitten, but me and him was coming back out. And that's when me and him was screaming. And we got back in the car, and we was just hollering, call 911, she's hurt.
It's the morning of June 18th, 1984, the day before her 1-year wedding anniversary, and Linda Meeker stands naked in her bathroom. Someone comes from behind, slings a towel around her neck, then stabs her 3 times, piercing her heart. Linda dies in seconds. Her sister Barbara finds her body hours later, around 6 p.m.
Linda was found lying naked on her bathroom floor. There was evidence there had been sexual activity.
Within 24 hours of the murder, officers in Bladen County contact authorities in Sampson County. They claim to have found a deaf mute with a knife in his pocket, along with a folded up newspaper with Linda's picture on it.
He was more or less a transit. He'd sleep under bridges and just sleep in the woods and things of that nature. We sat down and talked with him and interviewed him, did the very best we could. And personally, I thought he was a strong suspect. He was wanting a place to stay, food to eat, and we gave him a place to stay. Later, some superiors said you need to release him, let him go, so we did. After this evidence was taken to the lab in Raleigh, they called back and want more evidence, and they said what they had did look good, and they would like to have some more samples from this gentleman. And we put out a all-points bulletin trying to find him, and we didn't. The FBI helped us track him down a few months later. He had died in, I believe it was Tennessee, and had been cremated.
Although the deaf mute has never been eliminated as a suspect, almost everything about the crime has family members and many investigators dismissing his involvement.
Well, I know when Linda, when she stayed at home by herself or she was at the house by herself, her doors was always locked. But it wasn't locked that night when we went up there. If she didn't
Not
know
to a
you,
stranger.
she wouldn't open it.
It did not appear there had been a struggle or fight of any type in the house, which it could have been. You know, it's just hard to say. I do know that the person that was involved in her death must have cared a lot for her, or was a real soft-hearted person, one.
Based upon the physical evidence at the scene, there's, I think, a strong possibility that there was not a lot of time that elapsed between the sexual activity and then the actual murder. That could be very close in time.
If that door was locked, Linda would not have let anybody in she didn't know. Unless it was somebody had a key to let themselves in. And the back door was open when Barbara and Stevie got there.
One thing that we believed was a possibility was that Linda may have known her attacker. This was not just a random act.
This washcloth was over the wound. In my personal opinion, I feel like the person that did it had care for or feelings for. Don't know why it happened, but whenever it did happen, I think he was, him or her, whoever who did it, was definitely trying to stop the bleeding.
The location of the evidence, where it was at on the body, where she was located at, and other physical pieces of evidence that were present really is a strong indicator that the person who she had this sexual contact with that day is a very good possibility of the one that was her killer.
There wasn't too many. I would say about 3 suspects developed in this thing. Some of the people didn't cooperate, that had information that would not come forth. It just seemed like it started off on the wrong foot. We could never get it on the right one for some reason or another.
Linda Meeker is stabbed to death and left naked on her bathroom floor in June of 1984, 1 day shy of her 1-year wedding anniversary. From the beginning, the search for Linda's killer remains confined to a tight circle of people she knew. From the outset, police focused on her husband, and in the autopsy report, he is said to have made inconsistent statements during the early stages of the investigation. 2 years after the murder, a team of SBI agents picks up the case and develops another strong suspect. This time a co-worker of Linda's, with whom she allegedly had an affair.
Although the motive in this case is, to this day, we believe is still unclear, there was an individual that was not a member of the family, but a friendship.
Why is that?
There was circumstantial evidence that the suspect continued to grow stronger and stronger.
Well, that's it then. I'm done.
Investigators file a search warrant in Onslow County seeking a blood sample from Jay Hoddle. He sat across from Linda at work. In the warrant, police say he confessed that he and Linda had kissed on a few occasions. 3 days before the murder, Howard is washing Linda's car and finds a love letter from Jay in the glove compartment.
There was not enough circumstantial evidence to arrest the individual, although there was discussions with the district attorney at the time. The decision rested in the lap of the district attorney, and his decision was not to seek indictment or prosecute.
Meanwhile, local detectives remain troubled by Linda's husband's behavior, both on the evening she was discovered and during the early stages of the investigation. Howard tells police Linda was still asleep when he left the house around 6 a.m. the morning of her murder. According to investigators, he never returns home that evening, and police find him about 9 p.m. at a friend's house in Clinton.
The best I recall, her husband was the last one that saw her, and as far as we knew, he was. There's no information of anybody else seeing her that day.
There's times we've wondered and wondered why they hadn't arrested somebody, but they always just never have enough evidence, to arrest somebody.
There's too many things that did not jive. There's too many facts that did not jive. There's too much evidence that did jive. And I'm just disappointed. It should have been taken care of a long time ago. We all want to know who and why.
Howard says the first year of marriage is like a honeymoon. Everything was new and exciting. They would stay up late at night, laughing and making plans for the future.
I guess when you're young and you meet somebody like that, and you know how it's just real quick falling in love.
They never really had a long time to know each other.
Maybe her 12th grade year, she was seeing Junior. I mean, it was, like a real quick. We didn't even really know a lot about Junior, when she married him.
Even today, Howard says he never suspected Linda was being unfaithful, despite finding the letter in her car.
She lived somewhat of a sheltered life with her family. The family was close-knit. She had very few men in her life that she had dated.
She had talked about getting married, having children, and building a great big house. She was a good student. She was supposed to go to college. I took her and drove her to Jacksonville to the college she was going to go to. That's when she changed her mind and decided she'd get married and drop college.
As Linda got older and was able to seek employment away from the farm, she was able to work in an office environment rather than out in the field. She was able to dress up, really working in a totally different environment than what she had grown up and was used to.
She was a friendly person. She was always had a smile on her face. I don't care where you seen her, she was happy.
Before this occurred, I don't think I knew any of the family. I may have met them before, didn't know who they were. Just in sitting down, talking to people, and go to their house, and so you just get a feeling about them, a gut feeling that you just got to help these people. That's all there is to it. I wanted to solve this case to make them feel good, especially the mama. I thought she was an outstanding person, and I really, really did.
she wanted to find out who done this before she passed away. It was real hard on her. I mean, up until the day she died, this was really hard on her right on.
We really felt so sorry for them because they had taken this loss so hard, very, very hard.
When her mother talked with me about her problems and was saying she sure hoped that it would be solved before she passed away, I had an empty feeling at that time that it may not be, but I didn't tell her that. We had run about every lead we could at that time.
So, with 3 suspects and no arrests, investigators find themselves resubmitting physical evidence in 1992. Hopes are high. Every day, DNA analysis is solving more and more crimes. And although the investigation has been frustrating, there is no lack of physical evidence in Linda Meeker's murder.
This was a sloppy murder. It wasn't a perfect murder, by no means. It's very sloppy. The one that done this would have been ashamed of herself. But it was good enough to get away with it, I'll tell you that. Yes.
Eight years after Linda Meeker is stabbed in her bathroom, detectives send semen samples recovered from Linda's body and bed sheets to be analyzed in the SBI's lab. DNA is an emerging science, and investigators are hoping it will be the turning point in the case. The results are shocking. The semen belongs to neither Linda's husband nor her boss, the man she was suspected of having an affair with and who was nearly arrested for the crime.
I think the conclusive elimination of this particular individual certainly makes us look at this case in a way that anything is possible.
Because the autopsy report concluded there was likely no sexual assault, family members and police wonder who had sex with Linda that morning. They say they're at a total loss. More importantly, they wonder whether Linda's killer and her sexual partner are the same person.
Who is that person? Is that person the killer? If they're not the killer, who is? You know there was someone there physically that left some very strong evidence that was intimate with this person right before death.
And I knew then that you couldn't solve all of them. There's no way. And that's true all across the world. I mean, we see it on TV every time you turn around unsolved murders. But as an investigator, you don't want one yourself. You know, it may be okay for Joe Blow to have it, but you don't want it yourself. Even the best, the very best, can't solve them all. There's no doubt about it.
We're so close to answering the questions, but yet so far.
I'd like to know why they done it. To take her away from us. And she was just beginning her life. And I hope they know whoever did it and why they did it. They were in the wrong.
You know, have a heart. You don't have a conscience, so at least have a little heart.
They're out here walking around doing what they want, eating, drinking, breathing. And where's she at? She's 6 feet under because of their stupidity.
When you take a case personal and you get where you can't sleep at night, and not many times you have a case like this, I think all investigators runs into this sooner or later. They'll have one that will just hit them just right, and they'll live with it for a long, long, long time.
Linda's family and most investigators have long since abandoned hope for an arrest. But there is no statute of limitations on murder, and it's possible someone watching this broadcast has information to help solve this case. In a moment, we'll recap the primary suspects and give you some final details about what might have happened that morning in Roseboro. Stay with us.
On the next NC Wanted.
She was stabbed one time in the neck, and she did have abrasions and contusions on her elbows and knees, which would be indicative of some form of a struggle.
It's the case that's baffled America. Hundreds, if not thousands of tips. Billboards by America's Most Wanted. Full-page ads in USA Today. But still, no suspects and no arrests. The unsolved murder of pregnant mother Jenna Nielsen. Next Saturday night after the 10 o'clock news on Fox 50.
Welcome back to NC Wanted. It was June 18th, 1984 in the Sampson County town of Roseboro. That's when young newlywed Linda Meeker was murdered shortly after having sex with someone other than her husband. All these years, the investigation has centered on 4 possible suspects: her husband, her boss, a deaf-mute drifter spotted in the area, and the unidentified man Linda had sex with the morning of her death. A DNA test confirmed Linda's sexual partner was neither her husband nor her boss. And investigators say they found no evidence of forced entry into the home and no evidence Linda was raped. Did her husband or boss have time to come to her house after her sexual encounter and kill her? If so, did they see Linda's partner in passing? And there's the possibility that her sexual partner killed her. If he didn't, perhaps he knows who did. These questions may never be answered unless someone finds the courage to come forward with information. If you know anything about Linda Meeker's relationships, her death, or what may have happened the morning of June 18th, 1984 in Roseboro, pick up the phone and call our hotline at 1-866-43-WANTED, or go to our website, ncwanted.com, and click on Report a Tip. As always, your identity can remain confidential. Join us next week as we profile more unsolved cases and fugitives from our area. Remember, together we can fight to protect the quality of life we hold dear in North Carolina. I'm Gerald Owens. Good night.